Hey, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay.
If we sell them, I'll give you $30, but if we don't, you end up with a pair of Manhattan glass candlesticks.
Well, it's not a problem.
In June the 30th.
Well,
We'll look them up. It's not a big
okay.
thing. I mean, you want me to? I don't mind. I'll give you the $20. You want me to reimburse you the $20 when they sell? I'll give you $10 more.
Yeah.
If I get 30, because I don't want you to be strapped for cash.
Yeah. Well, I just do a nice one.
You're in nice stuff. You could buy.
Yeah.
I try to be fair with you when you shop.
Well,
But you can wait for your profits on that. But but the thing is, I'm going out of business. I got cases full of stuff. The last things I had, what was it? I've got no. No, that other pair of candlesticks.
Yeah.
I got rid of them. What were they? I remember I knocked them down to half price or something. There were a pair over here that were marked something like $49.50, and I sold them for $25 or $30 because no one had even looked at them. They weren't Manhattan.
Nice.
Were they Manhattan?
No. The Manhattan generally goes really, really well.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll see you later.
Okay, is Jimmy here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good.
You the call.
I think you mentioned one time that you had I don't know whether it was audio or video recording of Marsha talking about Stonewall.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
That was broadcast on BAI.
Broadcast on BAI.
Yeah.
When was that? Was that in the 1980s sometime?
No, we were all on for, gosh, it must have been, maybe it was 1989. I think I have it over there somewhere in my drawers.
Okay, I'd like to listen to that sometime if I can get a chance.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have too much about Marsha talking about Stonewall or that. But let me just ask you during the 1980s, because obviously
that would probably be the key thing.
Yeah, I would like to.
They occasionally rebroadcast that on BAI as well.
Okay. During the 1980s, was Marsha involved in any kind of protests or political stuff or community stuff?
No. We don't have lava lamps, Jimmy.
I saw, I don't know whether it was a videotape that you gave me or just some photographs of you with her with ILGO when they were protesting the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Right, yes.
I saw that, and I was just wondering.
Marsha's one of these people that would always go to an event. I mean, she was active in GAA.
Right.
And that was during the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And she was always willing to become involved. I mean, she was, I don't know, you remember the testimony about when she became involved with when the band people, the transvestite from marching in the gay parade, she and some others took over and headed the gay parade, and then they voted to let them in. What's the name of the group that runs the gay parade?
Heritage of Pride.
Right. I mean, that girl who ran that gave a marvelous line where she said that when Marsha P. Johnson joined Heritage of Pride, she knew they had finally really arrived. Something like Marsha B. Johnson coming on board is enough of a personality and a figure.
Right.
So I'm sure Marsha would work at things like helping the Heritage of Pride at their tables.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what else she would do. Gosh, it's funny because I never. She would join any political action that came on. I mean, she was an activist in that sense, but she wasn't someone that would come home and say, we're organizing a demo at the courthouse next week. At least I don't recall.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I just dragged her to the ILGO thing.
Oh, you did?
And then we got picked. Because Al Sharpton was supposed to show up. I said, wouldn't you just love to give Al Sharpton a big kiss if he shows up, Marsha? Come on, you can't miss this opportunity.
Because he didn't show up?
Yeah, no, we didn't show up. But I mean, we were there also in support of the Irish, and we were pictured in the Hoboken Reporter as, everybody's Irish for a day.
Mm-hmm. Right, I think that maybe that was the article that I saw.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And during the 80s when Marsha was living with you, how much?
And Willie, when she would spend some time with Willie in Baltimore, Willie started a gay coffee house for people with AIDS and everything that met at the community center every Friday night that he ran for a number of of months in the late 80s or early 90s. Maybe in late 90s. After he worked, it must have been early before, up months before his death, you know. Slowly the disease caught up with him. He became less and less able, you know. He started losing his balance.
Because Marcia was HIV positive too, but did she have health problems from that?
She was just beginning to get them.
Just beginning.
She had gotten shingles, you know, but that was the only, I know she had broken down with shingles, and I understand that's one of the first signs.
Yeah, I think it's an autoimmune problem, shingles, you know, aside from being HIV positive. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. During this period of time, how much contact with Sylvia?
Jimmy? Is he here?
The other guy said he was here.
Christ, did he run out? Jimmy!
I did hear the door open. Maybe he stepped out.
Ran next door, okay. Yeah.
How much contact did Sylvia and Marcia have during the 1980s?
Wow. Well, I remember, see, Sylvia was my arch enemy. Sylvia, after I wrote those nasty articles, would fly off the handle at the mention of my name. And then I had the Gay Conservative Alliance. I remember the guy who was head of Prostitutes of New York, who was in the Gay Atheist group, when he finally met me and liked me, said, I can't believe how I used to talk about those typical gay conservatives like that awful Randy Wicker. You know what I mean? And he said, now I met you, and, you know, he discovered I really was also a John and everything else, and, you know, had been a prostitute in my youth. I mean, I'm one of the few people that have been a prostitute, a John, and a madam, you know, which was just very interesting. Gives me a very rounded view of it all. You know, I know it from every angle. What was I saying about what was leading into that?
The Sylvia.
Oh, right. When in 1980, it must have been 1989, they had a forum at the Gay Community Center, and Sylvia was on stage. And maybe, I think that Sylvia insisted, even after we became friends, that I had objected to her speaking before me. Tell me when you're leaving, Jimmy, so I know. Put some numbers up for pricing.
I started that last,
Okay, well, continue it. So when I get through here, I'll give you the prices.
Right.
So, but anyway, when we ended up on the stage with Sylvia, Sylvia claims that I objected to her speaking before me. But Sylvia, you know, was drinking at the time, probably on drugs as well, but she just flew off the handle and began screaming at me. And I remember standing there on the stage very self-confidently, just saying over and over again, you are not, I don't know whether it's you're not a normal homosexual or you're not a typical homosexual. And Sylvia literally left the stage, circled around behind the back of the crowd, and went out the community center front door. What I found out later is Marcia P. Johnson followed Sylvia and said, you know, Sylvia, Randy has given me a place to live for the last 9 years. He really isn't that bad of a person if you just give him a chance and talk to him a bit. And Sylvia said, talk to that pig? Not in a million years. You know, I mean, she wouldn't hear it, but Marcia tried to be. So I assume that Sylvia also at that period, or maybe it was after that, no, there was a period, I think it was during those years, maybe at a certain point in Sylvia's life, she went up
in Tarrytown.
Right. I'm not sure
that
how
was most of the 1980s.
Right. So she knew Marcia, and they were dear friends. But you know, because Sylvia was involved with the Star House, and it's funny. There's another way Marcia's very clever. They wanted Marcia to be treasurer, and she refused. Because you know how, right? I mean, good judgment again, right? Because you know how treasurers of an organization that doesn't have any real funding ends up. And somewhere there's some money disappearing. I mean, that was just a tenement building that the guy that ran the porno store paid a couple months' rent on, and they did take in some people, and they generally tried to get the kids to go back home if they were from out of town.
Yeah.
And that was how Chelsea first met Sylvia. and
So
Marcia.
Chelsea should be a good source for that period of time.
Oh yeah, Chelsea's
Oh, that's
excellent
good.
for that period of
Oh, that's
time.
good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But during the 80s, I guess, Marcia was living with you, and
Right,
Sylvia
no.
was up in Westchester,
Right.
so there
So
wasn't that much
and I
togetherness.
think that right. I don't think because I know Sylvia would talk about going to score crack because when we drive back from flea market, she said we used to go off this exit to buy crack and whatever.
Mhm.
So I know she was using drugs at a
Yeah.
certain period when she was in Tarrytown.
Well,
And
I
she
interviewed-
attempted suicide and Marcia saved her life. So there must have been a very close connection because she talks about how she sliced her wrist or take an overdose of pills and Marcia came in and found her and saved her life.
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, can't remember. I also interviewed Frank
Yeah.
up in Tarrytown,
Oh.
so he told me a lot about what was going on with Sylvia at that time. But
Oh.
he didn't have a lot of contact with Marcia. I thought he might,
Uh-huh.
know Marcia, but he really didn't.
Have you
know
done
her.
any searches on the internet for Marcia P. Jones?
Oh yeah, of course, sure.
Are there many listings?
No, not too many.
How many?
Well, a lot of them are duplicates.
What engine do you use?
I use Google,
Yeah.
and Yahoo.
How many would you say?
Dogpile. I don't know. It's mostly, stuff, that Bad Puppy site that has
Right.
various things.
Right.
Transgender House, Warriors, Feinberg, Leslie
Right,
Feinberg
right,
wrote
right.
So there's different things, just sort of tributes to Marcia, but there's no real information.
Right.
And that's why I'm trying to, interview everybody who knew Marcia, so try to get some real information together about
Is
Marcia.
it Feingold or Feinberg?
Feinberg, I think.
I thought it was Feingold. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting confused with senators from.
Yeah, I think it's Feinberg.
Because I have a book that she autographed to Sylvia in my house.
Transgender Warriors, I think the name
Yeah,
of the book is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything. Ask at this point.
So I do hope, make one thing, I hope that you'll, just two ending things, tying things together, is that in the end, Marcia's effort in 1989 was not successful, but she achieved in death what she didn't achieve in life, and because it was when I set up the memorial service for Marcia that they said, well, what you do is you invite people that met Marcia at certain times of her life. And of course the family came first, but then Marcia met Sylvia when she was a 14-year-old or 12-year-old prostitute in Times Square,
Right.
and took her under her wing. So Sylvia went on the program before I did.
Right.
And this is a memorial service, and we're going to carry the ashes down to the river with the family.
Right.
So that was the day that Sylvia and I met and said to one another, for Marcia's sake, we have to bury the hatchet for today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was walking along, and through the experience of carrying the ashes to the river, we commenced talking. That's when Sylvia told me she was living at Gay Pier, which was a homeless encampment, that I have an incredible videotape tour of Gay Pier up here. And so I said, well, gee, I've heard about the salt mines. I'd love to do a videotape of that, because I was at the point getting interested in doing some videotape documentary making.
Mm-hmm.
I had fantasies maybe of getting a show on cable or something. So I made an appointment, and she dropped by. She dropped by once in a while. She never asked for money. I always expected she was to start being one of those people coming by wanting to borrow $5 or $10 or $20. She never did. But when I did the interview at the pier, which was a few months later, she gave this thing, well, if you'd give me a shot at like working at the store, she says it on the tape.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, why not? I mean, she's going to work at the store and completely bum out, I mean, it's going to be, I'll give her a day's trial, and I know she's going to be a disaster. She's going to be a complete, no way she could work out at the store. And I'd just gotten into Christmas ornaments at that time, and I had these dolls that needed stringing, which also was sort of womanly work. Well, Sylvia came in and started working, and all of a sudden, I can tell you, when you hire somebody, you can tell the super employee the first day. I mean, there are a lot of people, most people are in the media, I mean, they're what I call the super employee. They're the ones that are self-starting, energetic, they realize they're there to work. If I'm busy talking to you, oh, the floor needs sweeping, that needs to be unpacked, this needs to be put away, let me get up and put a burned out, light bulb's burned out, let me get up and put a bulb in that. That's what Sylvia was like.
Mm-hmm.
Up in the beginning, she worked very diligently, and much to my surprise, I mean, I would have never dreamed that she'd start working more and more and more. And she ultimately became the manager of my store and my best friend. And then the blizzards came 3 or 4 months later. I couldn't leave them out in the cold, so I took Sylvia. I took 3 of them in from Gay Pier into my living room, and Sylvia lived with me for 6 months. So the Sylvia that wouldn't talk to me a year earlier ends up living with me 6 months after Marcia's death. That's strange. And then this strange, but I really I really would like to be somehow to tell that story to so many people. You know, I told it at her funeral.
Right.
But I didn't put in the final line, and that was that may each one of you be so fortunate as to have your worst enemy become your best friend. That was the punchline that I failed to put at the end of my talk.
Well, it's on the tape here.
Oh, good. Well, it's true, you know.
And speaking of that, you're mentioning about you did the interview with Sylvia on the pier and everything. And I know you're closing the store. I know down in the basement you have Marcia's stuff.
Right. I probably have it over here in a box.
You probably have it in your box. Have you thought about putting it all in the gay archive at the community center?
I'm going to take it to my apartment for right now, and I have all this archival material. And matter of fact, I signed my new lease, and I said, what happens if I die? Because I don't have a will, you know, unless my relatives were notified, and God knows if they would. Some guy died there, apparently a Jewish guy, because they said even the rabbi couldn't help. They put a couple notices in the paper. If the relatives don't come forward, the state takes everything.
Right.
And I want to set up I want Rich Rondell to be my executor.
Good.
You know, and I
have
probably
you talked to him about it?
Yeah, and he's agreed.
Okay, good.
And actually, I was going to leave him the contents of my apartment.
Because you have a lot of important stuff.
Right. I originally was going to set up my whole estate to be to fund a position at the Gay Archives. And I may do a little bit of that. I don't know, because now I have the cloning thing as well to concern with. And I'm sure he isn't pro-cloning because he was studying to be a Catholic priest at one point.
It doesn't matter whether he's pro or
not. But still, I have valuable cloning archives. I'm the first human cloning activist. So my cloning archives I consider to be as important or even more important as my gay activists. People don't appreciate that now. I mean, I'm like back in the 60s, we didn't know we were making history. We didn't know that when we were 65 years old, people would be coming by and talking to us about stuff that we did when we were 20.
Of course.
You know, who would have ever dreamed it?
Yeah.
I mean, my classic story is the story of when we picketed the Whitehall Induction Center. I did it as a homosexual League in New York, and at that point, I'd probably gotten tired of Mattachine. I'd been active in the League for Sexual Freedom. And I remember half of them were wobblies. But they did agree that if you don't want somebody to serve, you should just let them go, or don't give them a dishonorable or 4F, which you have to explain. In other words, and if you find someone's gays in the service, just don't put dishonorable discharge, which haunts them the rest of their life. So their attitude was, who the hell wants to serve in the Army? But, you know, somebody wanted to, the government shouldn't have the right to refuse. So we went down with 11 picketers. 2 or 3 were heterosexuals. I mean, there was a lesbian, myself, Craig Rodwell. You know, it was almost as many straights as gays there, and it was radicals from the Sex Freedom League, and we picketed. We gave out 2 different leaflets, which I don't remember why they were. Mine emphasized more, don't let a man go, but don't destroy his life, and I forget what theirs. I mean, that must have been the difference. There was something we couldn't agree on, so we each had a leaflet. And that night, Fred Cherry, who's a homophobe, was active in the Sex Freedom League. He was on the phone, couldn't get any press to come. Nobody came out of the induction center to scream at us. No passerby got angry or called us faggots. We were just ignored. It was just like going to the river down here and shouting out the river and having no response. So that night, if you had asked me, well, Randy, how did the demonstration go today? I mean, and the Sex Freedom League was used to big results. I mean, they picketed like the Academy of Medicine, yes to pornography. They'd make the papers, or they'd go up to the public library and say a little censorships like a little pregnancy, and then make the papers. They'd go to Central Park and take off the tops. Women should have the right to go topless too, make the papers. And so all that stuff made the papers. But it was a total flop. 1988, that's literally 24 years later. I'm sitting reading a list of historic moments in the
like a
history of the
timeline?
gay movement timeline.
Mm-hmm.
First demonstration for homosexual civil rights in the United States was April 24th, I think 1964, whatever the date was, at the Whitehall Induction Center.
Right.
So literally, I discovered 24 years after the event that I had made history that day.
Right.
And I was so flabbergasted.
Right.
I absolutely flabbergasted. And then when I went to the exhibit of Becoming Visible, which I also have a complete
That was
videotape
94,
of.
right?
But I was the only one that went through with the curators and filmed everything.
Okay.
I have it all on videotape. No one else did. They talked about turning it into a book. I don't know if they ever did. But anyway,
I know they had like a guide, like a...
I recognized a U.S. Army, I forget what it said exactly now, poster. And it looked real familiar. And then I realized that was a poster that I had made. Now I'm very bad at making posters, but it was one of those times that I had enough time in advance that I really worked on making the poster look better than I generally succeeded in doing. But that was my poster that I had carried, and what had happened is Craig Rodwell had taken posters home from that demonstration and put them behind his bureau in his apartment, and they had survived.
Well, you definitely have to get all of these videotapes and audio tapes and all this
Yeah,
stuff
the
into the
videotape,
archive.
yes.
Because
Well, there's an archive in Philadelphia that has some of my videotapes. I was going to make copies and give them.
Yeah, because the archive here in New York, you know.
And I've been giving Brendan Fay various videotapes that I have of his activities.
Okay.
Like he doesn't realize, like when he was injured, attacked in Brooklyn, Mayor Giuliani came to visit him in the hospital. And I talked about the Catholic Church. You know, Brendan's being pro-Catholic Church, so they always look at the negative side of the church, not the good things the church does, blah, blah, blah. And they have this Catholic to Catholic pep talk. But it was still remarkable. I said, now, especially Brendan now, you know, he's working and doing documentaries. I said, to have a documentary where Mayor Giuliani comes to visit you in the hospital gives you incredible stature.
Yeah. Yeah, these documents are important, so you got to get them into that archive. Don't let it just slide. Because
no, I won't. In fact, I want to make provisions in my will for several $1,000s to be spent making copies of everything. I don't want everything to go to one archive. I want things to be copied, and a set of copies to go to the Gay Archive, and another set to go to the New York City Archive, and a third set to go to the Los Angeles.
Okay, but as long
archive.
as
So there are 3 or 4 sets around. You know what I mean?
But I mean, you can put the stuff in the archive now,
and
then still have access to it, rather than let it be in your apartment where it could get lost or could be destroyed.
Well, maybe I'll do that.
It's worth doing now. Next time I'm over at the archive, I'm going to talk to Rich Wandell and tell him to put a little pressure on you, because a lot of this stuff
I'm going to put a
important.
pressure on me to write a letter of intention and come by the store so I can talk to him about what I want done. You know.
Yeah.
Because what I do intend to, now I talk to because it's so hard to, you don't understand, I want to also make provisions possibly to leave cells for cloning and set up an estate for having a later born twin. But there are all kinds of problems with that, because you can't set up a living trust for a person that doesn't exist. If I set up an estate saying for myself to be cloned, the government may outlaw cloning, so it's like setting up an estate to commit a criminal act. And so all these things gets incredibly
complicated.
Yeah, I mean, getting something done after you die, you're right. Take it now. Do it now.
Yeah, do it now. So I'm going to talk to Rich when I see him. The next person I'm going to talk to is Bob Kohler. I'm going to get in touch with him, and then after that,
you should push Bob Kohler, find out what he made any.
Yeah.
Because he's 75 or
I mean, I don't know if he collects things. Chicken. Like you've collected everything, where some people don't.
Well, he's lived in the same apartment for years and years. I have a feeling he does, because he was very focused on gay liberation front. He's one of these people that hates GAA to this day. And, there's another guy that lives here on the corner. Oh, what's his name? Because a boy that worked for me, Brian Olson, lives with him. Did you ever see the tour? The gay. It was a great thing they had in the windows. The gay tour of different villages put exhibits in their window in Gay Pride '94, and he's the one that spoke for Bob Kohler, who was in the hospital. Oh, Jimmy, what is Brian's roommate's name? That lives on the corner. Jerry Hughes. Jerry Hughes. He's somebody who probably also knows probably.
Marcia?
Yeah, Jerry Hughes. He lives above. He doesn't like
H-O-O-S?
H-O-O-S-C, I think. And he lives above the store over here, right on the corner.
So that's a Christopher Street
He's a
address,
short
right?
guy, right? He's in his late 50s. And I think he's one of these people that generally gives dodges interviewers. He may. I give you Brian. O'Brien lives with him. His name is Brian Olson. He's an employee of mine. Let me see if I can get. See if I have Brian Olson's email address.
Oh, that's great.
I'll give you that. You can.
I don't think I know Brian, though.
Sure you know Brian. Brian worked here, for God's sakes. Brian's the queen that quit when I got in a fight with her. She started giving me negative attitudes about hustling. And I told her I don't dig people that knock hustling. And then I said, well, you're living with Jerry rent-free. He was having sex with Jerry, too. You're hustling. And then he felt I had offended him. He didn't talk to me. It was the end of our... I really liked him, too. It was a shame. Brian Olson. Okay, it's B-R-I-A, Brian, New York City.
B-R-I-A-N. Okay, great. I'll send him an email and ask him if I could get in contact with
Jerry. Yeah, right.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'll probably, have questions again in the future, so I'll just call you back and maybe I'll come over and interview you when it's time.
Okay.
You're keeping the store open until the end of June?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just
I
going to
may not be
retire
here the
now?
last weekend, and I hope so. I'm going to go working full-time at... Look, I haven't lived. You don't understand. Coming here and having to deal with all this shit and get rid of all this shit. I've taken in $150 to $130 a day. My rent, I need $800 to break even. My expenses here are at least $400 a day. I'm telling you, it's a real turkey. I'm starting to sell stuff on eBay. I don't have any choice. I put off retiring. I want to retire at 62. And I put money in the market. I lost money in the market. And actually, in a way, circumstances, in a way, I'm almost glad. I'm really glad that it collapsed. Because I don't have any choice. In other words, when you need $23,000 to pay your bills, and you only take in $15,000 2 months in a row, you're losing $4,000 or $5,000. That doesn't. It sounds terrible, but the reason I've been able to, the reason I've hung on as long as I have, is that a lot of this inventory isn't declared, or it isn't really a business where you can really keep inventory. So while I maybe only took $10,000 in salary, sometimes you can sell something for $1,000 and just put the money in your pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
so pretty much you've had it now, and you're gonna.
Oh yeah.
Are you gonna still work out of your apartment and do things? Or you just...
I'm gonna work. I'm gonna go on a speaking tour for cloning. You don't understand my resume. You don't go to the clone. Let me show you artwork. Go to my website and look under visuals and look under personalizing the issues. Let me show you. Things that you find very fascinating. I've spoken at Boston University. I gave a keynote address at a biotech symposium in Virginia. I debated at Haverford. Those are all together. I got $400 fees and put up at a hotel and everything in Boston and also in Virginia. And I haven't even tried to get a speakers bureau because I'm so busy here with this diddle stuff and getting rid of my stuff here.
So it'll free you up.
And
to do these other
also
things.
I want to write a book. I've been saving all this material. I've been living this adventure. You don't understand that woman that's in the news, Brigitte Bossier. I went to Montreal. I know those people very well. I was on Friar TV, Court TV, Catherine Friar Live just last month. I went up to CN8, which is a cable thing. It only covers 8 states. I went on, I was on the Walsh show. What's his name? John Walsh.
TV thing?
No, he has a show in the morning. It's a national show. They had the Ray Owens as a guest. They had me as a founder of the Human Cloning Foundation with the audience saying, well, what do you think of this? I said, they're all frauds. And I claim, and matter of fact, here's a good example. My growing fame worldwide. You laugh. Type in Randolph Wicker in quotes on Google. How many things you'll get?
Yeah.
How many do you think?
I don't know.
Make a guess.
25.
How many do you think Sylvia Rivera has? She beats me.
She beat you? I don't know.
Sylvia Rivera beats
Let's
me big
Sylvia.
time. I haven't done it lately. Let's
No.
try it right now. Let's see what happens. Because I've been trying to close the gap.
Oh, you-
She's dead.
That's what I'm staring at you at.
My goal is to catch Sylvia. And this is the big media horse sweepstakes we're in here now. We'll go to google.net and we'll see how we do. You're going to be surprised. Google.com. Okay, so we'll do a Google search for Sylvia Rivera. If you put quotes around it,
Yeah, it'll
it makes it
make
more
sure that it matches
specific.
Sylvia and Rivera.
SYLVIARIVERA. Now, how many do you think? I know how many she gets.
I don't know, 25 or 30, I would
Where
think.
have you been?
I don't do counts.
You don't know how famous Sylvia is.
Let's see, you got...
She has 1,660.
Right. All right, let's get
Last time I did it, she had 1740. I think she's dropped. Now, I don't know why that would be, but I could have sworn she was 1740, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, now we'll go to the more lesser known, who hasn't spent quite as many years in activism as Sylvia.
Right. So was Sylvia an inspiration to you to like get involved in this?
This is ridiculous because it says
560.
about 560. It was 740 for me.
Yeah, maybe it's under Randy though. Maybe you want to just type in R-A-N-D.
Well, if I type in it's Randolph as a keyword. If I type in Randolph, I get these are about 2/3 of these are mine. But there is a they're 1,240, but they're not. There's some
Yeah,
others.
could be a lot of other things. Yeah.
See, Professor Randolph to Randy. You know what I mean? So of this, but I was up at 740. I don't know how I could have fallen off because I've gotten more media since then. For instance, here's one. This is a full-page article. Do you read Dutch?
No.
Holland?
Word.
It says here, I can tell you what this
Yeah,
says.
see,
It
Randolph
says,
H.
Gerst
Wicker.
speak met Randolph H. Wicker, the first
Roman activist.
human cloning
In the
activist
world.
of the world. Up here it says Randolph H. Wicker. You know, when they married in 1998, Human Cloning Foundation. So I mean, this just came in the mail. I'm surprised it's only at 5. Maybe it's because I put the quotes around it. Would
Yeah,
that be
maybe.
it? Let me see if I do it just as Randolph Wicker. You've got me upset because I'm now
try
it's
Randy.
3-1. It was no Randy. I never use Randy. Randolph.
You don't?
No. Randolph is a key because I spell Randolph differently than other people.
Yeah, I know. I see that.
Randy, how much are the, I'm sorry to bother you,
What?
how much are the hanging, different color, they look like ribbons?
Where are they? The ones that are spinners, plastic.
Yeah.
$6.50 for the short ones, and the longest one over there is $15.
This one here is 15?
Yeah. Now this is funny because now I at least went up to 707. But they're all about me. I don't know why it would find more.
More without the quotes.
Yeah. See, and look, these are from all over. I mean, they're not just. Some of these are gay today, but let me go up to some of these. I have some saved that are really funny. Oh, I'll be damned.
This is very nice.
I didn't know NewYorkPost.com. Oh, this is one I don't have in my computer yet. But this is the thing. Let's see here. Translate this page. This is so funny when they translate these pages.
It's pretty
I don't
bad
know.
usually.
Oh, it's just. But what is it? They call me a fossil. One says Randolph Wicker, a millionaire. Another says Randolph Wicker, a fossil. Who defends the cloning of human beings? How many nowadays they defend the cloning of human beings with reproductive ends? Probably much more than War, the one and the ones that openly declare pro, enough to see for this, let's see. Every human.
More spacious, the people have been nicer, and, well, Long Island's like that too.
Yeah.
On Long Island out here. Yeah. You know, because that's where I'm originally
We'll see where they say
from.
me.
There's a lot of space
You know how to search for your own name on a page like that?
How do you do that?
It's easy. See, go up here to edit.
Yeah.
This will help you out a lot. Hit
Okay.
edit, find on this page.
Oh, wow.
Okay, hit that.
Yeah.
Get a little box and write in Wicker. Hit enter. Or find next if you want to.
Fine, next.
Okay. Brings you to it.
Oh.
You know, then you can hit find next again. So that way it saves you having to read all this stuff.
Oh, it does. Oh, wow.
You see, and you'll see, you hit find next
Let's
again. Okay, there you are again.
Yeah.
And there you are again.
Yeah.
So like if you're particularly, like you're looking for your own name or somebody else's, you don't have to be looking through all of this
There's my
stuff.
picture.
And then it'll bring it down again.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Finish searching so Wicker doesn't appear, but if you were
Okay.
looking for something else.
Yeah. Oh, well,
So just
yeah,
remember,
that's incredible.
on any document, you go to edit.
Oh, I didn't know that. That saves me a lot of
Yeah,
time.
you don't
know
waste
what
all
I
your
mean?
time like reading
Right,
all this text.
right,
and you can miss
because,
things.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where is that
Come
from?
visit us
Does
again.
it say?
That's Portuguese.
Is that Portuguese?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh. I didn't know. Didn't we see New York Post? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that this had ever made the web. I looked for it on the web. Oh. This is fabulous. This was a full-page write-up of me in the New York Post. It's very short here.
I'm not too sure.
Did they mention the gay rights thing in passing?
Once again, just hit edit, put in gay.
Oh, this is all about me. This is a profile of me.
Right. No, but if you wanted to see if there's something about gay, you would just
Yeah.
hit edit, put in gay, and then find that rather
Oh.
than search for the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I made your life easier.
Oh.
All right, I'm going to have to go.
Okay.
But I'll keep in touch, and when I need to talk to you again,
What are you doing? What are you doing your doctorate on?
I'll do my doctorate on architecture.
Yeah.
But I just-
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
This gentleman wants to know about the reproduction, sconce over here. The
Okay.
long shade, you know, the one, the
Okay.
frosted
Okay,
one.
just a minute. I'll be right there.
I think it's chrome, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm going to shut this off now. do this here. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This is a interview with Randy Wicker on February 1st, 2003. It's got pretty good sound. Before I even get started to ask questions, I listed, if you remember a couple of years ago, you had me go through, you had a box on Marcia stuff.
Yeah.
I went through and I listed all sorts of people from that information and from other.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could just sort of look at this list with me.
Yeah.
And if any of these people you know, or you know how I can get in touch with them. Like this Alvin Baltrop.
Oh, Alvin Baltrop?
Yeah. Did a photograph of Marcia and I was...
No, I don't. I mean, she used to work... George Pabon?
Yeah. I see him around. I used to see him around.
I'm not sure you have. Are you sure that's the way you spell his name?
Yeah, Jorge Pabon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bambi is dead. Yeah, who died.
Right.
Marcia's got ashes in front of St. Francis.
Right.
I don't know that Bambi was at Stonewall.
Okay.
I doubt it, because the story with Bambi was she was a very beautiful young queen who had an older lover who turned into an alcoholic as she aged. She didn't have any, I mean, as I recall the story of her life, and just became a terror of Christopher Street before her death. I mean, believe me, you would see her, and I mean, she would threaten to smash up. You know, she'd cause scenes constantly. She was a real sort of living menace. You know, I don't know who Penny Arcade.
Yeah, this next grouping is Hot Peaches Review.
Well, they're still around.
Yeah.
Hot Peaches, the people that run the New York, what's that theater over there, New York, 2nd Avenue, around 10th or 11th Street on the
Theater
east.
for the New City?
Yes, yeah, those
there.
people, Green is their name. They would be able to probably put you in touch with a lot of those people.
I've actually interviewed a number of the people on the list here.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I mean,
Jimmy Camicia, he lives over here on 6th Avenue.
He still does, okay.
Yes,
Because I have a number for him.
Right.
He's on my list.
International Crisis, Hot Peaches deceased. Yeah. I don't know, Julia, I don't know these other people, Mark Henry, Michael Lynch.
Yeah, I can, through the Hot Peaches crowd, I can get in touch with all those people. And then you gave me Norma's number. I'm going to get in touch with her. I'm going to go over to Elizabeth and hopefully interview her. So that's the family. Then if you just go to the next page, that's just...
Okay, she have all the things. Okay.
Yeah.
She's home all the time now with arthritis, so you should really get over there because I don't think she's going to go back to work, but she may.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll
see.
give her a call. Lieutenant Fahey at the 6th Precinct, is he still around?
I don't know.
Okay. He's the one you sent the letter to about Marcia's case.
But he was put in charge of Marcia's case when it got too hot to handle. When I had not only a letter, I mean, I took over a tape in which I thought was a tape. I made a copy of it, thank God. But I had interviewed someone that said that he had seen people harassing Marcia. Right. Right? And I left it there saying, here, this is the solution to a murder. Don't you know they lost the tape? I don't know if that was mentioned in my letter, but they never, of course, I had a copy, so I had able to make another copy of it, you know. I mean, what if it had been the only copy? I mean, unbelievable, you know.
Oh, I know. Emilio Cuero?
I don't know.
Okay, because there was a poem that he wrote for Marcia in 1974, so he, you know, as of 10 years ago, he's on East 2nd Street. Right. But I'll find him. Jeremiah Newton, recorded an interview with Detective LaBrue.
He's still around. He's in the housing over on the, he's still active with one of the, or was active with one of the Stonewall Veterans Group, but he's over for the public housing projects over on Pass Avenue D. Okay. In Manhattan.
All right.
I don't...
And do you know if he knew Marcia very well?
Huh?
Did he know Marcia very
well?
Well,
yeah, he tells a story that when some bar in East Village wouldn't allow blacks, he went over and broke in the door with, I guess, GAA breaking in the door because they were discriminating against black people, and Marcia gave him some great, do you have a videotape of her funeral service?
Yes.
Because he speaks in that, and I think he tells that story in that.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to hear, but you have to listen
you have to listen very carefully to that tape.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know. I never knew Michael Swerdlow.
Yeah.
Bill Dobbs, he's still around. He's here in the village. He was the one that marched with us. He's still, you know, Bob Kohler's
Right.
still here in the village. You should talk to him because he's...
I talked to him at Sylvia's funeral, and I told him that I would eventually contact him.
Yeah,
so
we should hurry because he's 75, 76 years old, you know what I mean?
But he looks in pretty good health.
Susan Roy's very familiar, but I don't remember, she was a straight woman of some sort.
I don't know,
Was she one that, somebody put some photographs of Marcia up at the, might still be hanging there, over there, at that, what's that place called? Duplex on the corner of Christopher and West
really?
7th Street, right. Chelsea is now out at Transy House. Let me give you her new number. Transy House. She's involved with, she would be a very good one because she was one of the ones that was taken in by Marcia and Sylvia. And so when Sylvia had nowhere to stay, was living with me, she met Chelsea at some NYU and ended up moving out with Chelsea in Brooklyn. And Chelsea House, you know, is very famous. They've been on, among other things, I never saw it, Jerry Springer. I can imagine how that was. But I wonder if they'd vote for him if he was running in their area. I didn't see the show. I only heard about it. These people, you know, you'd think that at least they would let you know, or somebody get a copy of the show. Let me find Chelsea's number before I forget that.
So Chelsea goes way back in the early 70s with them.
Yeah, Chelsea goes way back to the 60s.
60s.
Because she, I have, you know, my book is disintegrating, so.
Gotta get a Palm Pilot.
Oh, please. And then have my whole life wiped out in one big crash.
Well, if she's at Transy House, I have her number.
You have her number?
Yeah, because I used to call Sylvia there.
Okay, fine.
So
okay, right, okay.
All right. So then there's Mama Jean DeVenti.
Yeah, she's somewhere in Connecticut. Yeah, she talked on and on and on at Marcia's memorial service. Just wouldn't shut up. Gave me the idea of how to dominate Craig Rodwell's memorial service. I said, hey, did he 5 minutes? She took 35 minutes. You know?
Is she somebody who goes way back with Marcia, or?
I'm not. I tell you, I don't like Mama Jean because I'll give you an example. Mama Jean was very active in GAA, and when the alternative Stonewall Parade, I was giving people posters of Marcia, or even it must have been, that was since '94, and she was driving a car, and Queen Allison. You know her various names. You know who Queen Allison is? What's her other name? Forget the name. She's the one that has a Stonewall car that has a very murky. I mean, there are lots of things that would be said against her.
Controversial whether or not she was there. Or
not. And then she has a whole, you know, patchy background in the gay movement. The Imperial Court claims she swindled them out of money, and the Tenants Association claims she swindled them out of money. But I will give her this, that she took Marcia's sign. She was a true lover of Marcia and put it on the aerial of her car in that parade. And Mama Jean DeVenti just threw it on the back floor of her car. And so I have, you know, for someone who dominated Marcia's memorial, that then to behave that way too. It was like she was using Marcia.
Yeah.
Well, she's somewhere in Brooklyn. I don't know. Do you have a phone number for him? He's still around. You might.
No, I don't. He's in Brooklyn.
I think he's in Brooklyn. You might find out through Boots and Saddles, because I know he hung some of his art up there.
Okay.
Daniel M.T. Graham.
Is there like a particular bartender at Boots and Saddles that you?
No. I think that's one of his places of operation, or maybe he had the portrait of her hanging there.
I think you're right.
I might be wrong.
I think you're right.
Bob Kohler might know who he is.
Okay,
also.
yeah. Each person I talk to, I go through this list.
Daniel Graham. Yeah. He lives in Staten Island. Actually, the fellow in the back room, John Helliker, might know his current phone number. Okay. Marcus Mayan. Oh, he was somebody who just was a boy who's probably now dead from drugs.
Okay. He was just sort of
he was just
drifter,
someone that was there,
happened to be
yeah,
there.
yeah, hung out down there, and I think was, let's see, I don't know Sue and Calvin. I don't know who Sheikah Bacal was.
Okay. Yeah, somebody said that she died, so I have on my notes here.
Okay. Augusto Machado.
Yeah, he was described as a long-term friend, but Michael Lynch of the Hot Peaches knows who he is.
Oh, he does? Oh, good,
Yeah.
okay. Marge P., she now lives in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. That might be interesting. She lives in, where do they die for the Tarpon Springs, Florida? I don't know if I have a current phone number for her, somebody I've wanted to get in touch with for a long time, because she volunteered and went to Russia as a peace worker. And I know she bought a house, but then she rented out her house because she felt at 65 or 70 she still had something to give.
Okay.
Of course, they were going to send her to Africa. I knew as a
Oh, yeah. Just put it anywhere.
Anywhere, okay.
Stick it over here.
Okay.
and an old number, which I'm sure is long since no good. But she still probably owns that house.
Okay. Well, I could try to track her down. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Tampa the first week of March, so if she was down around there, I could probably even talk to her.
Yeah, we should call her and talk to her on the phone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because what was interesting, she was a middle-class woman who came and got to know Marcia and her daughters. Her daughters met Marcia just like George Flinland's family.
Mm-hmm.
People would come to the house to see George, and they would fall in love with Marcia. You know what I mean? And they would, Marcia had a way of winning everybody's heart. I know you have to check with the St. Mary's Thrift Shop about.
Okay, yeah, they were just mentioned in one of the
Annette
obituaries.
Ellen, right. She was just someone upstairs. I don't think she would know anything more than she's quoting Hoboken Quarter. She
Okay.
still lives upstairs in Marine View Plaza number 1. Margot Howard died.
Deceased, I know.
She died.
And Barbara Yoshida, who photographed Marcia in front of Raoul's.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if roles still exist, but they might be able to tell you.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, yeah, that's helpful. So each time I talk to somebody, I get a little bit more of a lead. And then I just...
How much do these things cost?
with the recorder?
Yeah.
I think it was about $25.
Isn't that all?
Yeah. It's actually got good sound quality. Yeah, it's not bad. I had one that was about $15 and it was kind of scratchy, and then I got this one and it's been pretty good. So, okay, I mean, we don't even have to finish today, so if you got other things you're going to have to do, I'll come back. I just live around the corner anyway.
I just picked a bad time because if he leaves, I don't have it.
Yeah.
Are you here? Are you here? Call Hoboken in time. That is.
He is. He's on his way.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. Why don't we start with? I've done an outline of Marcia, but why don't we start with the year that you met Marcia? Do you remember what year it was?
I think it was 1980.
1980. Okay.
I might be wrong on that, but I just remember. Yeah, I think because Willie and Marcia entered my life at the same time. I'd have to look at old Christmas letters.
That's all right. I mean, just general idea, 1980.
Yeah, because somehow I remember when she died in 92, I could say that she lived with me for over a decade. So it must have been 80, or I don't think it was as late as 81.
Okay. So, you know, what were the circumstances when you first met her?
Well, I had adopted this street boy who really turned out to be, he was a hustler, brilliant but illiterate, come from an abusive family, who ended up being like my adopted son for the next decade. His name was Willie. And when I first met him, he was actually a dancer at the Gaiety Theater, which was a hustling bar. And he had been head of gay youth in Baltimore, and he knew I had been an old gay activist. So he came by, where many of the boys who give their cards never bothered coming by, because of the gay activism connection. And to make a long story short, he ended up moving in with me at a very reasonable rent. And because he was a delight, he would make you laugh all the time. You know, there was a very brief, fleeting sexual interest I had in the beginning, but that quickly ended. And one night he said to me, it was very cold, it was like 10 degrees out. He said, Randy, he said, and he had told me when he met me about hanging out with Marcia on Christopher Street. And I had met Marcia when she had been rescued from the mental hospital by GAA. They had gone in and rescued her.
What was it, Ward's Island, I think?
Yeah, somewhere. She had gone, I think, Bellevue, wherever, and they had spirited her out. And I mean, my impression of Marcia was she was just a spacey street queen, you know what I mean? So I said to Willie, I said, I don't think that's somebody you really want to associate with, right? So after Willie moved in, he says, it's awfully cold out, and it was like 5 or 10 degrees. He said, would it be all right if Marcia just came here and just slept on the floor? Marcia likes to sleep on the floor. Now, when I heard that statement, I thought, I mean, Willie was very manipulative, very clever. I thought, he's feeling, what a story to tell somebody Marcia likes to sleep on the floor. So I said, you sure she won't steal? Oh, no, I know Marcia wouldn't steal. So Marcia came in and began that night to sleep on the floor and lived there for the next 12 years. And I remember David Kearns, my lover, telling me, who also became a great fan of Marcia, especially when he was dying. She came in and would pick him up off the floor when he fell off the couch and all this stuff. And, David said his favorite people in life were Marcia, Dr. Son, and Ben, and myself. And I thought the four of us in a rowboat would be the strangest crew you ever saw, right? But anyway, he told me that when he walked into my living room the first time and saw Marcia sitting on the couch, he said, my blood ran cold. I mean, that was the horror with which people, and I mean, when I tell people that, because Marcia would come to the village, and I remember telling some people that, well, Marcia's living with me now, and middle-class gay white males said, oh, Randy, you have such a sense of humor. They laughed. And I remember one Sunday in particular, it was so funny because I said, no, I said, she's really very nice and very, very sweet and, helps around the house and blah, 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 a lot of fun. And my God, literally, we walked out of the store and stood in front of the store, and about that time, you heard this loud screaming and screeching down at the corner of Christopher and Hudson, and there Marcia is in drag, like pulling up her dress or reading somebody in a loud, tacky voice. I mean, like just the kind of behavior that would just make you want to shudder and hide your face. I've just sat and told these people what a nice person Marcia was. As they sat there with big eyes, not believing me, and then we go outside and see Marcia acting in this absolutely outrageous manner, which was something that, like I had a guy come up to me when I had the stand, and he told me he once saw Marcia pull a knife on somebody. I said, what? He said it was this queen, if she was having a fight with some street queen. And he said she pulled out this knife that was, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 inches long, just threatening. I don't know whether it was the thing where it was a showdown between the two queens or whatever. I don't think it was at him. I think it was with somebody else. Anyway, he came over because I had my table about Marcia's murder, and sat there and told me this story about how terrible she really was, and then gave me a $10 or $20 donation. Which, it's just sort of very interesting. I mean, they go out of his way to tell me this story, and I said, I don't know what the circumstances were, but I know that, Marcia, but then again, Marcia did go through periods when she was mentally ill. I mean, which I didn't believe, because for the first 6 or 7 years she lived with me, I thought this mental illness was just a crock of baloney that she fed to the government to get a monthly check. And when you talk to Norma, they'll tell you, Michael or Mikey was a Social Security cheat. They called her to her face, you're just a Social Security cheat, because they're all middle class.
Disability kind of?
Yeah, because they're middle class, and then Marcia would be called down for her SSI interview, checkup. They have to recertify every few years. She just put on her drag outfit, her most outlandish drag outfit, and go down. I mean, the social worker couldn't fill out the forms quick enough to recertify her for SSI. And only when I went away and left her in charge of the apartment.
And this was years into living there?
This was 6 or 7 years later. I'm in Florida, and I find out that she's gone over and she's lit candles on the balcony. She spray painted my kitchen. She smashed up all this wonderful glassware that I had gotten at flea markets over the years, hundreds of dollars worth of glassware. And she had actually gotten to the point of she was about to throw some bronzes off the balcony. Unfortunately, somebody, the manager of the store here, had the keys, and David lived nearby, and somehow they got over there, and they got Marcia. Marcia went from the apartment, she was wearing a red feather boa, and she went over to David's apartment and knocked on the door, and David wouldn't open the door. and she'd say, "Is Mr. Combs here? Is Mr. Combs here?" And it was funny because a week later, or several days later, when we came flying back from Puerto Rico, we could see red feathers all the way from along the street from Marine View number 1, the 2 or 3 blocks over. We kept walking on. There was bright little red feathers here and there all along in the gutter and on the street. It was amazing. There was a whole trail of Marcia. They got the keys away from her and locked her out in the hall, got her out of the apartment, got the keys away from her. And that's the point she pulled the fire alarm. And when the fire department came, she told them that God told her to pull the fire alarm. And that's how she ended up in the mental hospital in Hoboken. And I think that's the way, the first time I believe that I met Norma.
Oh, okay.
That's when I met them.
Okay, all right.
Right. That was years after.
Do you think this behavior was anyway related to you leaving?
It could have been, because what I did is I bought $250 worth of groceries, and she proceeded to come down to the village with, I understand, shopping bags full of cans of groceries and throw them at the bus. I mean, she obviously had become unglued, and it was a real disaster. And that was only the first time that I finally realized that Marcia actually was mentally ill. Up to that point, I would have told you she isn't mentally ill at all. She's the same as you and I. And after that must have been 86 or 87. It's in one of my Christmas letters. And David was already 6. It must have been 86, 87, 88. After that, it became more frequent. It got to where we realized at one point she decided, I hired somebody to follow her. She announced she was, when she started going to a mental breakdown, they stay up for like 22 hours straight. And they start rummaging through drawers, and they don't make sense when they talk. So, we'd stay awake, and then finally she'd go to sleep. We'd think, thank God we'd go to sleep. And my God, she'd be up an hour later. You had to watch her because she might burn down the house or anything else. And so she decided she wanted to go to Atlantic City to see Donald Trump. Well, I understand she got to Atlantic City and walked in the entrance of the Trump Plaza Towers, and she got about 6 feet inside the door, and 4 guards beat her and just jumped her. And she ended up at the Salvation Army, because I had to talk to them at the shelter or whatever, and I paid her way back to the city. I don't know whether she got any medication or not. Maybe that one she got over by herself, because I know we were terrified. We were so glad when we heard she'd gotten on a bus leaving the city. And it was just a nightmare, because Another time she had a mental breakdown and just started wandering the city and came home all beat up. Her false teeth had been. It's amazing that people, and I don't think that she did anything to attract it. I think it was that we live in a society. I remember driving down the Bowery and seeing middle-class looking guys in fairly new cars jump out and beat up a derelict. A derelict walking along the Bowery, and I couldn't understand that. What would motivate anyone to pick on the weak and disabled?
Yeah.
But apparently, it's very dangerous to walk around in a big city, in a disoriented mental state. So she was, and at one time she told me, in one of her experiences, and it was relevant to her final death, that she looked into the river and saw her father at the bottom of the river. I don't know whether her father, she had never known him, or whether he had died when she was very young. I'm not sure about the details on that. But that tied in the fact that she ended up, I think it's a 50-50 call, although I really think it's a 50-50 call, but it still doesn't excuse the police for not doing more of an investigation. But she could have thought she was going to walk home on water or something. You know what I mean? She could have hopped into the river to get away from people that were cornering her and being abusive because they had been harassing her. And in those days, the drug dealers hung out in that park all the time down there. So she was seen live at 11 o'clock at night up at what that West End bar where they had sex and everything. Not the dugout, something up there on 21st. I forget what the name of it was. What?
What's the next price on this one? $249? The little Hall of Fame?
Someone who would love it.
$199.
$199.
You'll never see another one as long as you live, even if you live to be 160 years old. I guarantee it. Because that's the only one I've ever seen.
Really?
In 26 years in the antique business. Ever seen, not seen, not passed by it, and I never saw one on a show for sale at an antique show or anything.
I just want to go back to when Marcia first moved in.
Yeah.
Were you aware of her connection with Stonewall and
No.
Star House and all of that?
The
But
Star
that's-
House,
I mean,
yes, Star House, yes, Star House.
So you knew that before she moved in, that she was...
Well, no, not before she moved in.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, what you knew...
Oh, no, I only knew her as a news reporter. At one time seen her and written a news story about her for Gay, about how the GAA people had rescued this black drag queen from a mental hospital, because GAA's political take on it was they've locked up Marcia. And of course, I would have been the same way. Knowing Marcia as she was most days, if someone had come into me and told me, have you heard? They picked Marcia up and put her in a mental hospital. I'd been right there with the GAA crowd spiriting her out of there.
Right, okay.
And and she just struck me as harmless, but spacey.
Like eccentric kind
Just
of thing, but
spacey.
not...
Spacey's the only word. Just a little bit spaced out. Like it's not saying anything profound, not being the way I got to know her later when she moved in with Willie very quickly. Because when she moved in, she was extremely intelligent and extremely sharp and extremely witty, and just had a way of, I remember two things that stand out in my mind. We went to visit my mother and we took her this big Steuben bowl, which I've since gotten back since my mother went to sold for $2,500. But we brought it and we were going to hang it in the kitchen. But we sat there with the family having dinner at my mother's house, and suddenly it's 11 o'clock. It's time to go home because we've got to get the plane in the morning or something. And Willie says, "Oh, we can't hang the bowl now." And Marcia had been very quiet because she realized that in this middle class family, you couldn't hoot and holler about cooking or, said, "Of course you can." So of course, Marcia literally just, the one thing she said that evening, we ended up hanging the bowl, which was quite an adventure because I'm holding this rubber gloves and I tell people here all the time, turn the power off with the switch, and it was a double switch. So when one thing on the switch went off, on the general at the side of the building, I assumed that both switches at this electric box were on the same circuit. So I merrily hung the bowl, and then I'm connecting the wires to the dimmer that I put in for it, and when I touched the wire to the dimmer, it sparked. So all this time I've been dealing with live wires and not realizing it. But so that was very interesting. And the other thing, what was the other thing that was? She was very real. Like, there was this little cross-eyed queen named Pogo. As I got older, Pogo was the name, like from the comic strip or something. Is he cross-eyed or short?
I don't know.
Strange-looking short. I think it's Pogo. Pogo?
I'll have to look.
Pogo, or maybe some other name from one of the children's stories I wasn't familiar with, or one of the semi-cartoon characters. But anyway, he came by the store, and I used to drink every night. David was sick, and he told me that his parents owned an antique shop, and he didn't have an interest in antiques. And this boy was only 18 or 19 years old, but extremely homely. He was a little bit cross-eyed, he was short, he just was not in any way attractive. But I liked him as a person, and he knew how to flatter. So, he'd sit after I'd have a cocktail, and I'd tell him, I'd go up to the Gaiety, or I'd go uptown and pay some boys for sex or something. And he'd say, "Oh, Mr. Wicker, who could charge you, who could think of charging you for, you're telling me all these things, who could think of charging you for sex?" You know what I mean? And then, of course, he'd want to borrow $5 or $10. And I sort of got this thing going that this boy was good company, he was fun, he had a certain interest in antiques, and I was looking at this boy not as a hustler, but as somebody who was homely younger person that I actually might have in my delusions. At that time, I was then, that must have been, I was in my mid-40s, that I might actually have a chance with, right? Well, one night, Marcia came home and did what I call fed me a reality sandwich. And I said, she said, "I saw Pogo on the street." Pogo, or if you think of some other name that begins with P, some real short, cross-eyed character, not necessarily comics. It can be one of those nursery stories, or one of those stories they tell children. One of those, like Mother Hubbard in a Shoe characters. Anyway, I said, "Oh, you did?" She said, yeah. She said, I asked him, I said, what do you think of Mr. Wicker? And he told me, oh, he's much too much of a troll for me. I'd never go to bed with him in a million years. Well, I mean, reality sunk in. So, but she was very good that way. I mean, she
really trying to protect you. Was this her way of just
she wasn't being evil. Yeah, oh yeah. She was always very honest. She had a way. She had a way of it's called reading. But she was so clever in the way she would read people, and she would read you in a way that you would laugh and it wouldn't hurt, but you would know what she was saying was true. I have her on tape, on videotape here in the store, talking about, oh, hurry up, we have to have this, we're having a party, and I just done $1,000 sale, we closed the store to have a birthday party, I think for Willie or something. I have that on tape.
I think you might have given me that tape.
Right, and she says,
party in the store.
Hurry up, because Mr. Wicker is losing hundreds of dollars an hour. And I think I was saying that, hey, what do you mean hundreds of dollars an hour? I just did $800 in a half an hour. I'm losing thousands of dollars an hour. But you know what I mean? She, just like when Willie Helliker gave him a gift, Willie leans over to the camera and says, Helliker in the back, he's very cheap. He has good taste, so inevitably you'll find something. Gave me a Deco clock, but it squeaks so much I had to spend $35 to get rid of the squeak. I mean, it gives you stuff that, it's beautiful, but it has a crack or a chip. There's something wrong with it. And Will on that tape is reading similar to the way Marcia would be. This is a gift from Mr. Helliker. Where's the where's the crack? Where's the chip? Where's the damage? But that she was very, and she was very real. Like she'd say things like, if she didn't come home, we knew she'd been arrested. And then she knew how to fight the system. Because when they arrested her, you could get out by paying a $100 fine. She said, I'm not paying no $100 fine. Well, if you didn't pay a $100 fine, they sent you to Rikers Island for 30 days. So she'd get out the 30 days in Rikers Island, and these boys would be coming on to her. I don't know whether they had gay, I don't think they had gay segregation then. And she'd say, they'd say, what do you mean us pay you for a blowjob or something like that? She'd say, oh honey, you're going to pay for it if you're going to go to bed with me. And then she would do things like wash their socks for a cigarette and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So in a way she told me when she'd come out of jail, she said, oh, I see she knew all the people in jail. She said, I saw a lot of my friends in jail. He said, but you wouldn't like them, Mr. Wicker. I said, why not? She said, because they're in jail for shoplifting. And all they talk about is how they can't wait to get back out so they can go back out shoplifting again.
But Marcia would be arrested
and what
for
would happen,
prostitution?
right. And the funny thing is she would not pay the $100 fine, so the judge was sentenced to jail for 30 days. And just about the time we were resigned to her being in jail for 30 days, the system has a certain intelligence about it. Maybe it was overcrowding, whatever. Inevitably, they'll let her out after 8 or 9 or 10. So the fact of the matter is, that's the way to fight the system. And Marcia wasn't going to give them $100 of her money. So by making them send her to jail, what did they spend? $30 or $60 or $100 a day keeping her in jail, whatever it cost, out at Rikers. And after 8 or 10 days, they realized they knew that this queen was harmless. And then I told you the story about Morty Mansford, didn't I? That Marcia, after she quit hustling, as she got older, she'd only be able to turn tricks like on blizzard days. She'd be out there in her fur coat and all. Once I got her a new fur coat, and the fucking cops tore it off her back because they didn't like seeing a drag queen in a fur coat. It was an old fur coat. I paid like $25 for it, but it was horrible how they tore it off her back. But she would enjoy. She'd say, I'm just going out to see how the girls are doing, check, because she enjoyed the environment. So she would go up to 16th Street or 15th Street, where I think they still hang out. The transvestite hookers would hang out. She said, I'm just going up to see what's going on, to chat with the girls and catch up on the news and see what's going on. But she apparently was somewhere like that, I think outside of a housing project or something. And she wasn't hooking. I mean, she wouldn't lie to me, so she really wasn't hooking. The cops came by and said, you better move it along, or, you better move it along. And she continued to sit there on the stoop. Now, Willie said that she used to sometimes like to go out and drag and sort of sit on stoops just to get attention. I said to Willie, why do you think Marcia gets dressed up? She said, because when she goes out just dressed as her normal, no one pays any attention to her. But when she puts on a dress, all of a sudden she's the center of attention. So maybe Marcia was sitting there, just enjoying the attention, but she wasn't hustling. She would have told me she was hustling. Right. So they came by and they arrested her because she had been there for 15 minutes for loitering for the purposes of prostitution. So she went downtown, and Morty Manford, who had been president of GAA and was a young lawyer, ran into her and said, "What are you doing here, Marcia?" "They arrested me for prostitution, but I wasn't prostituting." And Morty Manford said, "I'll take your case, Marcia. I'll defend you." So they went into the court, and Morty Manford got up and said, "Your Honor, Malcolm Michaels was his name, Marsha P. Johnson, wasn't prostituting." And at that point, they brought out this pile, which I understand was about as thick as a telephone book. And the judge says, "What do you mean? Look at this file for prostitution. It goes back to 1962, and she was convicted anyway, even though that's what happened.
She wasn't.
Yeah, and other times she wasn't. Every time she'd be going to it's the way the police work. She was going up to the Anvil, and walking up the West Side Highway, running to meet Willie at the Anvil, and the cops had a quota to meet. They're out to pick up some hustlers, and they knew she was a hooker, right? So they just pull over and say, "Okay, sweetheart, it's your night to go in." And she said, "But I'm not a hustler. I'm on my way to the Anvil to meet a friend." So, come on, you know the deal. Get in the car.
Yeah.
So it's just the way the system works. You know what I mean? They don't sit and wait till they see somebody approach. I mean, especially in a case like that. They're supposed to make some arrests for hustling, so everybody they see that they ever knew was a hustler, they simply pick them up and take them in.
Yeah. Well, during that 10 years or so that she lived with you, did you have any employment, paycheck kind of thing?
No, what it was is that I used to give her. It's funny because this is actually the way it worked out. Yeah, she had SSI.
Right.
So she had, and I managed her money. She'd get a check for $500 or $600 a month.
You give her allowance.
And no, what it is I would hold her money. Now she could take it all that first day if she wanted to, but she'd had me hold $200 or $300. When she needed $20, I had a card in my wallet. I'd give her the $20 or $30. But then when she got down to zero, that's when it would get dicey, because she'd say, "I need $30 to go to the Anvil tonight." And I said, "I'm not going to need $30 of my hard-earned money to go to the Anvil tonight. I'll lend you $5 or $10 to get in the city, but I'll be damned if I'm going to splurge to pay your way into the Anvil. I have to go to work and get up and go to a flea market. The hell with you." And so she would run up a bill with me, but I would fight her. In other words, as long as she had money on account, she could take any amount she wanted. But she learned that after that money ran out, so she'd tend to try to keep money within bounds. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't like to be in this situation. "Mr. Wicker, I might need $20 to go somewhere. You might only give me $5 for car fare into the city."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then at the end of the month, she'd always pay her bill out of her check. And the thing that they mentioned in the funeral, which was so funny, and she used to say to me in front of people, which was true, but it made me, I mentioned it in my speech at the funeral, is that when she did the laundry, I'd give her a $10 tip for doing the laundry. It was a lot of work. At that time there were 3 or 4 people living in the apartment. Willie, Marcia, me, I don't know. We always had 3 or 4 people living there. I always had a new dancer sleeping on the couch for a few days before they started stripping at the Gaiety. Never got robbed either, because at the Gaiety they'd make $3,000 a month, so they probably would have robbed anyone else but me. So she would introduce me to friends and saying, "This is Mr. Wicker. I do maid's work at Mr. Wicker's. I get paid $10 a week." Now, it's funny, but guess what you were allowed to make on SSI without having your check endangered? $10 a week. See, she was sharp as a tack. It was incredible how Marcia really, you thought she was pacey and you thought she was crazy, but she was crazy like a fox. Of course, I said to her, "Please, Marcia." Oh, and another thing Marcia used to brag about, because I flew her to Puerto Rico with Willie, sent them on a trip, and then all they did was friend they gave her. No, Willie was sort of like, he was like her sister, his dearest sister. He'd treat her very well when he was dancing at the Gaiety, but also she'd be like his servant, like, bring me this, bring me that. But then Willie was a hustler who would make $2,000 in a week, and he'd take her out. But with Marcia and me, she used to love to tell people, "This is Mr. Wicker. He's bought me furs, I had. He's bought me jewels. I bought many brooches or things, you know what I mean? He sent me to the Caribbean I don't know, she sent me to the Caribbean, bought me furs and jewels, and you know what he's gotten for it? Absolutely nothing. And then would cackle like crazy, you know what I mean?
And what was the Caribbean trip all about?
The Caribbean, I wanted her and Willie to see Puerto Rico, and like a fool, I didn't go with them. So I set it up with the owners of a gay house down there to give them so much money a day. And what happened is they ended up in San Juan, and instead of going, and as David said to me cynically, you really expect Willie and Marcia, you know, with their backgrounds, to suddenly go out and savor 16th century Spanish architecture in old San Juan? You know, I had to go on a campaign to get them to the rainforest, because all they were interested in doing was running to the tacky, sleazy bars in San Juan. They could do that in New York City. You know what I mean? That's the least interesting thing. You know? And there wasn't even the money to be made there. I think they hustled a little bit there too, but there wasn't even the money to be made in San Juan. I mean, they were up against all these local native boys who are much better looking and much less expensive, and much more authentic.
Is Willie still around?
No, Willie died in 1993, I think.
Okay, so after
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And did Marcia have any...
He settled down, just to finish with Willie.
Yeah.
He settled down, I guess he left New York 87 or 88 or 89. He moved to, maybe 89 or 90. He moved to Baltimore, and he met this boy who knew nothing about his background, this boy from Wyoming, and had this fabulous relationship with him for 3 or 4 years. Because he didn't have any of his skills, he had learned how to make lamps here. He found out that he couldn't hustle, there was no money hustling in Baltimore, so he began wiring people's lamps for $5, $10, $20, and he began rewiring lamps and putting them for sale on you know, these commission shops. Mm-hmm. And then he started working in an antique shop off the books. And he got a lifestyle going there until his health gave out that was better than mine. I mean, they had lived in a big lavish apartment with all these $500 this and $800 that, you know, pieces of furniture.
And he kept in contact with you and Marcia?
Oh yes, not only that, when David got really sick, my lover got really sick, he and his lover came up and lived in David's apartment and ran my business for about 8 or 9 months. So I could spend full time in the hospital with David as he was dying. I mean, David's deal was he'd go in the hospital if I stayed there with him. So literally I would spend every day in the hospital full time, and they totally not only ran my business, it reached its peak. I mean, because Bob said he spent his honeymoon working here in the store. He has a very romantic attachment to the store because Willie and him got here. They were very interested in how you take a worthless piece of base and an interesting neck and a funky globe, and you put it all together, and you have a lamp that really has $10 or $20 worth of parts, and you can sell it for $200. Mm-hmm. And they were masters at that. In fact, Bob had been a chef. And he said the difference between he liked lamp making more than being a chef, because he said as a chef you work to make this delicious dinner, but you never see people enjoying it. He said here I'd work all night. Sometimes they'd drop speed. They would work 8 hours. They'd stay up all night on Diedrex, on amphetamines, work completely through the night, open up the next day at noon, and continue on to 8 that night. So that means you're talking about a 36-hour work day. Needless to say, I wasn't getting my money's worth the last 6 hours of that at least, or the last 8 hours of the 36 hours. I mean, but it was incredible. I mean, they were just fantastic, and they were my lifesavers.
But Marcia never worked in the store?
No, Marcia worked in the store one time in the back and dealt with stripper and found out how it burned her hands, and you couldn't get Marcia in here.
Really?
No, that was enough for Marcia. Willie put her to work once, early on. I think it was early on when...
So the others would work here, but Marcia was not...
Yeah, but no, Marcia never worked here, no.
Okay.
Marcia would sit around the house until about 4 o'clock, and then suddenly she'd feel guilty. It's funny, I could almost see it, because her mother had cleaned houses for a living. And so Marcia would lay around, it'd be 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden, I really, looking back on it, I think it was almost like it was the work ethic that she had absorbed from her family that has a very strong work ethic. She'd suddenly get up and say, "This floor is filthy," and she'd mop the floor for an hour before she'd go out. Don, has Jimmy gotten here yet?
Not yet, I'm waiting.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, I mean, let me turn on
No, I
the,
don't want to, no, I don't want to, get, he's on his way.
that doesn't mean a whole lot with Jimmy.
Well, no, Louis said he already left.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
That means he's on the train, or,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna wait for a little bit, and then when he gets here, I'll leave.
Okay.
If you have to stop, I'll just stop.
No, that's
and
it,
come back.
I mean, if I have to stop, it'd be because some customer comes in or
Mhm.
something. Did we have only the one sale all day, right?
2 sales.
How much they come?
Actually, no, just 1 sale, because the other one was still credit.
Oh. How much was the store credit for?
The store credit was,
Did you adjust it?
what?
Did
Yeah,
you-
I wrote it down, I just,
Okay.
forgot to write total.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, did Marcia have relationships? Did she have a long-term relationship or anything like that during the time you knew her?
Store credit was 283.
Not really. I mean,
Basically this
it was
group
Papa,
of friends.
no, it was not long-term. You're talking about romantic
Right,
relationships?
right.
It was Papa $10 she'd been seeing for about 20 years. Gave her $10 when she started. And she always called him Papa $10. I mean, that was the way Marcia was really real. She said $10. She got $10 when she started in 1962, and she got $10 in the late '80s, and $10 just didn't go as far as it did in 1962. I kept getting her basic rate, but.
Oh God, that's funny.
She had a lot of. She was deeply beloved. I mean, Marcia in the end would make more panhandling than hustling. I mean, she would go out on the streets. What did you pay for those things?
What? Pay 20 for the pair?
Well, I don't know if that was any great buy. I mean, what do you think they're worth?
Well, the Manhattan glass.
Yeah, but I
All
don't.
the dealers said they were.
No, they look like Manhattan glass.